Okay, welcome to my attempt at explaining the Lesson 12 handout here for Algebra 2. Um, I guess, yeah, enough people were asking a whole bunch of the same questions over and over. I have found in my other classes that I teach that creating a video, allowing you guys to pause, rewind, go back over and over is more helpful than trying to find time during the school day for you to come in and do that. So here we go. Again, this is the Lesson 12 handout. It's called Unit 2B. That doesn't matter. It's factoring with diagrams. And to get started, they give us a function. Edit that. There we go. So they give us this function, x cubed plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 8. Our end goal, number 3 down here, that goal right there is to write it as a product of 3 linear factors. So just so that we have the end in sight here, what that means is they want us to rewrite that function x cubed, 5x squared, and so on. They want us to write that in a different form, a form where we have like x plus a number, like x plus something, x minus 3 is one of them, x, and so on. So that's what they mean. That is our goal, but it's going to take us a little while to get there. What they do tell us is that one of those parentheses is x minus 1. So I do know that eventually, well, question 2 is x minus 1 times well, it's up here, right? Right here is what they're asking. Number 2 says, please write the x cubed equation as x minus 1 times a set of parentheses that includes an x squared term, an x term, and a constant term. So that's what number 2 is asking. So we're going to fill in the parentheses. Well, how do you fill in the parentheses? Is by answering question 1. We need to fill in this diagram on the left. So, diagram on the left, they've started for us. I can tell you whether it's a 3 by 2 or just a 2 by 2 box, the first one, the top left box, is always going to be the first term. So notice that first term of the equation is always in that box, and the last term will always go in the last box, so to speak. So I would say start your box always by filling in the top left and the bottom right boxes, because those are not changing. Okay, that's where they come from. Ooh, that's not what I meant. I'll just rewrite it. So we have that to start with, but what we're going to do with that is we're going to say, well, I know that in my box method, I'm going to take the row x times the column, which I don't know, but I know that when I multiply that row and that column, I get x cubed. So if this is locked in as x, and I have to get to x cubed, this box here must be x squared. If I know that, and I do, I can now fill in, I may as well fill in this box down here. The bottom left is now set. The x minus 1 from earlier, we believe x minus 1 is one of my factors, so x minus 1 makes our 2 rows. I can fill in the lower left box by saying negative 1 times x squared, and I get negative x squared. So before I go any further, though, I do want to make a clarification or a nice generalization that should help people. Let me change color even. Let's go to blue. This first column, the first column will always include some form of x squared. The middle column will always include some form of an x. And I mean that like it might have a number in front of it. But that box will have some kind of an x in it. This one will always have an x squared in it. And this one will always just be a constant term. So that's always true for all the ones you're going to be working with. First column has some kind of an x squared. In our case, there is no number in front of it. The second column will always have something x. It might be 2x, 3x, negative 5x, but the middle column is always an x term. And then the last column will always just be a number. There's no x's involved. So I know that this constant term, I could probably work with that right now, but I'm going to pause or wait on that. And I'm going to go back to this middle column. So if I change that back to red, so I knew that this column was set to be x squared in order to get this box to be x cubed. By knowing this is x squared, I'm going to come down here to my bottom box and say column x squared times row -1, I get negative x squared. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to shoot for answering this middle box. This middle box, look what's going to happen. I know that the column has an x in it, and here I know that my row is just x. Eventually, this middle box is going to have an x squared number. But I could have a number in front, right? I could be 2x squared, 3x squared, or so on. How do I know what the number is in front of this, right? So what number do I put? It's based on the fact that I'm going to combine negative x squared and this box. Together, they are going to form 5x squared. So if I have negative 1x squared and I need to eventually get to 5, negative 1 to 5, I need to be adding 6x squared. See, if I check that, negative x squared plus 6x squared checks out. I get my 5x squared. So that I do know for a fact. I'm going to erase that. So I'm asking myself, how did I get 6x squared? Well, I took row x times column 6x. All right, 6x, not y. So if I double check, x times 6x got me 6x squared. Then I can come down and fill in this box. Because I've locked in my column, I've locked my row, 6x times -1, I get negative 6x. All right, now all I have left is two boxes, the kind of the upper box here, that's our final answer, and then this one here. I'm going to look at solving this constant box here. And the reason is, I know that my bottom box is equal to the last term, -8. Okay, so if that's -8, and all I know right now is I'm taking -1 times some other number, what is the some other number? It's just 8. Let's check. 8 times -1, -8. Okay, that's good. Now, let's finalize our box right here. This top right box is column 8 times row x. 8x. All right, well, let's see. I have two terms that are x terms. I have -6x and I have +8x. If I combine these terms, I get 2x. Does that check? Absolutely, right there. 2x works out. What I've done by filling in this top row is I have answered the question, what goes into my second parentheses? What goes in there is x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now, if that's all it asks for is the product of x minus 1 and another factor, I'm done. But unfortunately, we have to go the last step, we need, remember, we need 3 parentheses. We need x minus 1, the one that they gave us. And then we need 2 more parentheses. And those are going to come from the quadratic equation here, or the quadratic expression here. So how do we break this 3-term parenthesis into 2 smaller parentheses? And that comes from the box method, just like we just did, except we're trying to solve for this term. Sorry, this expression. Just like the big box, my top left is always equal to my first term. So x squared. My bottom right box, just like before, will be equal to the last number in my equation. So that is 8. How do I get the x squared? Is by taking a row and a column that are each x. That would give me x times x. That gives me x squared. Now, down here, what numbers, so these column and row on the right and the bottom, those have to multiply. The 2 numbers, so I'm going to have some kind of number here, some kind of number here. Those numbers have to multiply to 8. So what are my multiples of 8? 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. Well, think about it. If I chose to put 1 and 8 in here, that wouldn't go well, right? If that was a 1 and that was an 8, I would get 8x for this row and column, and I would get x for this row and column. When I combined those, that gives me 9x. That does not match 6x. So I can't do it. Gotta try again. Okay. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so 1 and 8 don't work, but let's try 2 and 4. Well, my row column situation here, 4 times x. And my upper right, that's row column, that's 2x. Hey, look at that. That comes out to 6x. That's what we wanted. So my 2 parentheses being x plus 2 and x plus 4. So in less than 15 minutes, we got one problem down. The answer to a product of 3 linear factors, x minus 1, which was given to us, x plus 2, and x plus 4. So we got all of that taken care of. We have not graphed it yet, but in 2 minutes, I think I got time. So in the problem, it says finish the diagram. Check. Write it as a product of x minus 1 and one other factor. That was the hard part. Then the last one, write it as 3 linear factors, and we did that. Now, when it says make the sketch of the function, make the sketch of y equals f of x, it's asking us to graph x cubed plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 8. Making the sketch of that, they ask us to do a couple things, x-intercept, y-intercept, end behavior, and so on. I'm going to skip ahead. We only have a minute left in the video, and I do want to squeeze it in. My zeros are -1, right? The numbers that make the parentheses 0. So to say x minus 1, I would have to plug in 1 for this one, -2, -4. So 1 is right there, -2 is right here, and -4 is right here. My graph, it is an x cubed function. So for those, I mean, we have a new video to talk about this, but I know that that looks something like this. All 3 of my factors are to the first degree, so they cross, meaning I'm going to go up, down, up, put some arrows on the end, and I have sketched it. That is as good as I need to be. I don't need to worry about the rest of it. So please pause, rewind, go through this as much as you want. I will do another video or 2 of some other problems, but I am going to be cut off here at 15 minutes. So please enjoy the video. Ask me any questions in class, but thank you for listening.